Alright guys, it's been a long time since my last video. I know I haven't been around. A lot has happened in the last 2 years. Made some changes to my main build and I just wanted to give an update on what that looks like. So we'll run through the whole thing, and then if you have any other questions, leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you. So if you haven't watched my other videos, I'm a really big fan of, what I called before the mini recce. And so what I really enjoy shooting is the 13.9 to 14.5 match grade kind of do-all carbine that I can shoot from 7 yards out to about 500 yards. And I want to shoot suppressed all the time. I want it to be accurate, have a good trigger. So those are kind of the build parameters that I lean towards, just because that's the style of shooting I enjoy. I have a range where I can shoot steel out to 500 and chrono my loads and get to know the gun itself. And so that's really what I modeled this build around, is something that can do all those things and has enough magnification, but also doesn't sacrifice that 7-yard up close performance. And so where to start? So the upper and lower stripped are both BCM. I've had good luck with BCM. I've had this lower for many years, probably 10 years, and it's been in different configurations. The upper I bought as a stripped upper. I like BCM uppers because they are thermo fit. So if you're not familiar, that means that you actually have to heat up the upper receiver because they purposely undersize where the barrel extension goes. So you have to heat it up to be able to fit the barrel in. What that does is eliminates a little bit of slop as you're installing the barrel nut. And so that can translate to a little better accuracy. Not a guarantee, but it's nice to have. And so stripped upper and lower, both BCM. Starting at the rear, BCM SOP mod 0. I like these. I've used them for a long time. One reason is I get great lockup. That's always nice. I've tried some of the newer Magpul stocks and kind of been disappointed with the fit on the buffer tube. And so these also give you that just the right amount, I think, of contact with your face, the right slope on the cheek weld, and a decent overall size and weight. You do have QD points for your sling. So I've tried a lot of different ones, especially recently, and I just keep going back to the BCM SOP mod 0. Same goes for the grip. It's a BCM. I've tried a lot of newer ones, all different kinds, and I really like these for the shape and also for the grip angle. That's the number one thing. When these came out years ago, it was revolutionary back then, but the grip angle on these is really what I enjoy, because it's not 100% vertical, which can be good in some cases, but it also just has the right angle for me. Standard buffer tube, forward controls design, capsule nut, and sling plate. I haven't used this sling plate as much, but it does have connections for straight to the rear and then on either side. I typically just run my stock, or the sling on the stock on the rear. It is a standard mil-spec buffer tube. I did run A5 systems. I have run them many times in the past. I think they're great. If you have one, use it. What I will tell you is, from running, high back pressure, traditional baffle stack suppressors, if your gun is over gassed, the A5 system isn't going to fix that for you. So just keep that in mind. I run in this, I'm actually just running a Springco White, which is the standard strength mil-spec equivalent buffer spring from Springco, and then an H buffer, and that's mainly just because of how the gun is gassed. I don't really need a lot of extra weight to get reliable cycling that isn't super hard on recoil. The trigger is a Geisley. It's essentially, the flat face version of the SSAE. I've used both flat and curved. I like them both. Got it on Black Friday, so there's a good deal. The safety selector is Badger, so that hasn't changed. I really like the throw on these. It's 60 degrees. They attach by a roll pin, so no springs or detents or screws. I really like that about them. The feel on it is good. I got the forward controls designed, forward assist, and then also their charging handle. So this one's pretty neat. You know, Forward Controls came out with their own charging handle a few years ago, and they made it the same footprint as a mil-spec charging handle, which was good, but it still didn't give you any extra grip on it, I guess, just because of the size. So they came out with a little bit larger version that is kind of their LPVO version. And so that's what this one is here. So I really like the texture on it. It's easy to get a grip. I think it's the right size where the latches are larger, but not so large that you're gonna snag on a lot of things. And so it does have kind of that high shelf in the rear to help with gas a little bit. So I do like that about it. Other than that, on the lower, you know, the mag releases from Forward Controls, it is one of their heavier weight springs for the mag catch. Just a nice thing to have. In theory, it keeps you from depressing it inadvertently. Also their dust cover. Both of these are in RAL 8000, just like the scope, which doesn't really matter, but there it is. Bolt Carrier Group is the Sons of Liberty Gunworks. I've had really good luck with them. Lifetime warranty, you know, true mil-spec. Haven't had any issues out of them. I run them in all my guns. As far as optics, so running the Schmidt & Bender 1-8. This is the dual CC. So dual CC stands for dual focal plane. So it has a flash dot or red dot in the second focal plane, which means it doesn't grow in size when you magnify. And then your reticle itself is in the first focal plane. So what that allows you to do is leave the illumination on the flash dot on all the time. The dot doesn't get so big that you can't use it out to, you know, 2 or 3, maybe further, depending on what size your target is. And it has a really nice Christmas tree reticle with a sort of hollow cross. The center aiming point is a crosshair, but it's hollow, and you have a very precise dot. So it's great to get a great zero. There's a lot of things that I like about it. Obviously, the cost is the big problem. So I think if it wasn't for the cost, when guys look at the feature set of the scope itself, I think they would really like it. But again, the barrier to entry is super high, and I get it. You know, what a lot of guys think is, well, that's nice, but you know, I can get 80% of that performance by running an ATACR or a Razor Gen 3, and I don't doubt it. I will say the glass is really good. Is it twice as good? Probably not, but it's got a lot of features that I enjoy, and so I keep coming back to it. And to be fair, I'm not really a collector. I don't have a safe full of guns, so I end up spending, you know, more on just a couple guns, and I've kind of ended up here after trying a lot of different LPVOs, and I keep coming back to it. It's in a Badger 154 mount, and then I am running the Acura P2 on top. I like top mounted dots, even though I don't have night vision. For me, it's simpler and more intuitive to raise my head to see the red dot than it is to cant the gun and then find the red dot. Honestly, up close, the dual CC is great. It is daylight bright, but for most of the close range stuff, I've kind of trained myself to just run the top dot. So you got to get used to the offset. Even at a 154, that thing is up there. So it's something you got to train to, but it's not impossible. Next is the barrel. So you can't necessarily see too well under the handguards, but a few months ago, Noveske came out with a barrel that they called their DDF, Disruptive Deep Flute. So it's pretty interesting. It's a stainless match barrel that is essentially 0.980 diameter, OD, the entire length of the barrel. And then it has 7 really deeply cut flutes in it. And so you can read about it on their website. You know, one of the advantages there is cooling. The other one is rigidity. And so those things translate to longer barrel life and increased accuracy in theory. So I thought it was pretty interesting. I bought one right when they came out, thinking they were going to be sold out really fast. So this is a 14.5 inch. It is pinned, and it comes with a proprietary gas block, just because like I said, the barrel diameter at the gas block journal was so thick, they had to make a really kind of a thin-walled gas block to work with it. But I've had really good accuracy out of it. Sub-MOA, 5-round groups, and velocities are kind of what you would expect out of a 14.5. But what's interesting is, you know, getting some higher round counts and doing some up close stuff at a recent range day, it really does cool down more quickly than pretty much every other barrel I've ever had. So I do enjoy that about it. Running some rail scales panels just on the sides, mainly because I have this Annex Defense ARCA section on the bottom. I am, you know, messing around with trying to shoot off of a tripod using an ARCA mount, so I have it on there now. I don't leave it on there all the time, same with the bipod, but you know, if I'm gonna be doing some distance shooting and I'm gonna switch between, you know, shooting off a bench or shooting off a tripod, I'll leave it on there. As far as weapon light, yes, it is a Surefire Micro. Why would I run a Surefire Micro? Honestly, at this point, after running these kind of setups and, you know, being able to go out to a decent distance, I just don't have the range to shoot at night, or in reality, I wouldn't take a shot at distance anyway at night. And so for me, having a super high candela light that I'm gonna use to shoot out to 500 yards just isn't realistic. So, you know, I tried to save a little bit of weight. It runs on a AAA battery. It's about 300 lumens. Is it great? No. Will it work in a pinch indoors? Absolutely. So that's why I went with it. The handguard is also from Forward Controls Design. I did buy it in gray from them. You can see the paint is kind of missing there. Had some issues when I sprayed it and using painter's tape, but it's called Goose Gray. But it's a really interesting rail. It's made for them by a company called Cross Machining Tool, and I really like it for a couple of reasons. One is it's lightweight, but it's also rigid. And one of the reasons it's rigid is because of the attachment method. And so the way these work, there's essentially 2 of these blocks on either side that connect via 2 screws. And so those 2 blocks actually interface with the barrel nut. And so they literally are clamping to the barrel nut through that slot, and then you're using the screws to kind of clamp those 2 blocks against the barrel nut. It also has anti-rotation tabs, so it's super secure. I like the attachment method. I'm not a big fan of the kind that just pinch the 2 halves of the rail underneath. I don't really think that that's the best design, and so I've had really good luck with it. You know, for a 13.5 inch rail, if you compare it to some other ones, weight-wise, I mean, it's pretty lightweight, but I wouldn't put this in the category of something that's flimsy or that you probably couldn't trust. Again, I haven't tested it with a lamb, but from what I can tell, it's pretty rigid. Running the SOCOM RC2. I also have a Mini. I have run both on this, and right now I am running a gas tube from Black River Tactical, just because for whatever reason, Noveske loves humongous gas ports. So I checked it with a pin gauge. I didn't even have one big enough, but it's at least 0.083, which for a 14.5 mid-length, if you're gonna run a can on it, is just way too big. So went with a BRT tube. I actually bought one that was too small, shot really great, but when it would get hot, it would start to choke. And so I actually was waiting on another one. It was taking a long time. So I took the one I had and actually just drilled it out a little bit bigger. So I get about 3 o'clock, 2:30 ejection with the suppressor on now. So I'm happy with that. Magpul bipod, it's not the best, obviously, and this is just the M-lock attachment, so there's nothing QD about it. If I know that I'm gonna go zero the gun, or I'm gonna shoot off a bench at the range, I'll use it. I don't love the amount of play in it, but it's not that bad. You can get used to it if you load it correctly and do it consistently. For the price, it's not that bad. So this is just kind of the overview of my build as it stands now. There's a lot of things that I like about it. Downsides is obviously weight. You know, the Noveske barrel with the flutes really does cut out a lot of weight, but in terms of barrel, you know, overall, it's definitely not the lightest thing out there on the market, but you get a decent amount, really good amount of performance for the weight and the rigidity. Obviously, I think LPVOs are great. I'm kind of stuck in this mindset of I'd rather have a really good LPVO that has like a really good 8 power instead of going with extra weight and going to an MPVO where I might run, you know, a 2 to 10 or 2.5 to 10, and then kind of have to do that added weight. I still want the capability up close, so I'm more a fan of the 1 to 8, 1 to 10 scopes. And you know, some LPVOs are really good at 1 power, but not so much at max power. I think the Schmidt does a really good job at both, especially 8. And so I'm gonna stick with the LPVO route for now. So again, it does everything I want up close. I get sub MOA accuracy with match ammo in a package that, you know, the footprint isn't too large. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Until next time, bye.